meeting of the Independence Township Zoning Board of Appeals. If we could begin by joining me in a pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Brian, if we could have a roll call, please.
Sure. Mr. Auger?
Present.
Mr. Epping?
Present.
Mr. Galley?
Here.
Mr. Gruznick?
Here.
And Mr. Sharl?
Present.
Great. We have
All right.
all members present and a quorum.
I got myself out of it.
So tonight, we've got an agenda as published. Gentlemen, if we could review the agenda and either make any alterations to it or have a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Support. Motion support, all in favor?
Aye.
We have an agenda at hand. Before we get into our agenda, this is a point at which we have a call to the public for any public comment. This would be the time that anybody for the public, either online or in the audience, would like to speak to the board about anything that is not on the agenda. Does anybody like to address anything? Seeing none, I will close public comment and we'll move into our agenda. We've got two items tonight, one in unfinished business, one in new business. We'll go through unfinished business first by calling the case number. I'll read into the record the request of the applicant in terms of a variance that's being sought. Then we'll ask the applicant to either open up their microphone and speak from online or come up to the podium. I would ask anybody that speaks tonight if you could give us your name and your address so that we can have that accurately reflected in the minutes. And then anybody else, either online or in the audience who wants to speak at all tonight on any of the topics, if you'll also give your name and address, so we've got that correct. So with that, I will call case number 22-004, Gardner Signs petitioner requesting a variance from section 12.09 subsection B to permit a replacement of the existing sign to allow the face changes and keep the existing height of an area of the sign at 33 Bob Seeger Way, which is the Pine Knob sign. This is in the recreation district of our township, and it's postponed from our March 2nd, 2022 meeting. Is the applicant in the audience or online? Oh, I think you may be on mute. Can you hear us, or do we have volume? Hang on just a second. We're not hearing you yet, but we will.
She's unmuted.
You're not muted, but we're not.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Maybe it's because I'm down in St. Petersburg, why you can't hear me.
Well, now we're already mad.
Yep, sorry, but here I am. Yeah, we are requesting a variance.
I'm sorry, could you just introduce yourself and give us your address, please?
Sure, absolutely. Mia Asta with Gardner Signs, 1089 Naughton Drive, Troy, Michigan.
Thank you.
And we are petitioning for a variance for the name change over from DT Energy to Pine Knob Music Theater to change the faces out of the existing cabinet that is approximately 7 by 15. The top sign of the sign, we changed that out seasonally for Pine Knob Ski Resort. There will be no changes to that as far as size, anything like that. It will remain what it always has at the changeover, where they have a manual changeable copy sign. And there will be some structural repairs to the sign overall, bringing it to a much better visibility and a much better eye appearance for the city.
Okay, great. So that structure does have essentially two signs or two sign areas on it.
Correct.
The top one will remain unchanged. That'll be the one that as you say, you manually change out, and then the lower sign will be changed to
Just
obviously
the
refer.
faces. We're not changing the cabinet size or anything. We're just putting the sign is going to be all repainted. Wood repairs are going to be done to it, and we have new faces for the name changeover from DT Energy to Pine Knob Music there.
Great, thank you. And Brian, am I correct in saying that the permit really, or I'm sorry, the variance that's being requested here has to do with the height? That it's essentially, it's an existing sign, but is out of conformance with our current ordinance?
Yeah, so what the ordinance now says for signs, and we're working on the echo, but what the ordinance says is that when you change a face, it has to be brought into compliance. So what they're going to be doing is changing the face seasonally, as she said, and really to keep the sign in its current configuration, they need a variance.
Okay. Great. I don't have any immediate questions. Gentlemen on the board, maybe we'll start at my far left. Jim, any thoughts or questions on the applicant?
No, I was underneath the impression that this was gonna be a, movable sign, but it's really the same sign with just different names.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah,
Alright.
Pine Knob originally considered putting an electronic message center in. It's not in the budget at this time, so keeping it standard as is, not changing anything structurally to the sign, just changing out the faces and repairing wood and painting it.
Mhm. No, I have no questions.
Thank you. Brian, any questions or thoughts?
Yeah, it kind of the same thing Mr. Charles had said. I was under the impression that it was gonna be, a conversation about our new LED changeable copy ordinance. So no, I have no questions.
Thank you.
Correct. Originally, when we applied, we were under that impression, and that's why we got postponed from March to
that's
August,
what we
because
said we
the
would do.
decision was made not to go that route at this time.
I do, just a comment, or I guess a question. I assume it's an upgrade from just the black letter slip tracks like it was before, or is it pretty much the same up there? Is it?
It'll still be manual changeable copy. However, we are putting in new white faces with new tracks, so it'll look very clean, very updated. The letters and size will still be black on top, and again, the bottom size and sign, instead of it saying DT Energy, will say Pine Knob Music Theater.
Okay, thank you.
Mitch, any questions or thoughts?
No, same thoughts as the other two members' comments. Brian, has there been a previous variance issued for the current sign that's on premises now?
No, I couldn't find any record of it.
So
No,
it-
this sign is almost original to Pine Knob Music Theater.
so does that tell us that it complied at the point? Well,
It did.
okay,
The nearly, 35 years ago when it was built.
that's it.
Okay. Ellen?
Yeah, Brian, was any conversation made with the petitioners to lower the sign or make modifications to bring it into closer compliance?
No.
I went out there, I spent a lot of time one side is an open gate. The whole structure, I don't know what the internal structure is, but the external T111 is all deteriorated. I've got pictures on my phone if any of the board members want to see it. We've gotten great compliance or close to compliance on many signs in the township on our major corridors. And I just think that Pine Knob is so well known. It's like our school here, Everett Academy. It's so well known. They don't even need signage, and basically, from 75, there's no sign to show them how to get in. It's a wooded entrance into Pine Knob. This is mainly used in the winter, except as an exit in the summertime. I'd like to see another proposal come before us, bringing it closer into compliance, because once they take this T111 off, they may find the frame is totally rotten inside because there's so much deterioration. And then we're into a new sign. And I think they could come closer with something. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Ellen. Going back to you, Mia, have you investigated the structure of the sign? Is it?
Inside structurally, the sign is fine. There's a sign like that, the pole inside, there's a steel pole that's, I want to say it's 12 inches, and that's what supports the actual signage of the sign, so the bottom cabinet where it says DT, there's actually 2 poles that run up inside that sign. And again, we are making upgrades to the outside of the sign. As the board member mentioned, there's some deterioration going on. That's all going to be addressed and repaired and fixed. So structurally though, within the sign, the foundation is fine. The steel structures that are inside the sign are fine. And the wood and all of that is going to be repaired and all repainted. He mentioned about signage not when you're getting off the expressway. There is a sign, I believe it still says DT. I know 313 Presents is dealing with that, trying to get those changed back over to Pine Knob. You've got concert goers from all over the state that come out this area. Yes, I live a half hour away. I've known it as Pine Knob my whole life, but not everybody does. So you mentioned, you know, bringing into compliance, you have all the trees and everything that come before that entrance. Having that height and that size of the structure for that size of the venue is definitely needed.
Okay. Brian, my question would be, as it relates to the Sashaba Overlay District and the design standards, I believe this falls within the North Area District, doesn't it?
I'm not so sure that this property particularly does, or at least this spot.
This spot, it may not, although I think the North Area is called the Pine Knob area, ironically. I'm not sure if it falls within it. But, and it's really not part of this application, but as it relates to the applicant and to the owner, as they do make additional upgrades to the area, I know that the township has been really diligent about incorporating these overlay standards, and even the Monarch development across the street has done a nice job with those stone columns and stone pillars. And I think that if there are opportunities to, or as Alan points out, a need to restructure this, that maybe the base of that ultimately could become incorporated with some of that stone and some of the other features that we've worked up and down Sashaba. So I know that's probably future planning for Pine Knob. But certainly, I think it's a standard.
We did propose that, you know, from the signage standpoint. We had proposed a, you know, faux stone base, and you can tell the difference, a faux stone base, and that for that upgrade and everything, and it is in the plans for the future. It just, with all the other upgrades and all the other signage that's necessary within the venue, it just, with the last 2 previous years, you know, with COVID and that, it just wasn't in the budget this time. So we are trying to be very cost effective and make the sign look the best that it can under those restraints. But it is in the future for, as mentioned, possibly at an electronic message center, redoing the base with a stone type of base, even we call it skinning the outside with an aluminum type of a frame, to bring it more to current, but right now it has the nostalgic look of Pine Knob and what that area looks like and what it has represented for years.
Understood. I guess just at least, you know, from my opinion, from a zoning board point of view, as one member, it certainly would, as they go forward with additional improvements, it'd be nice to see them incorporate some of those along the frontage, because it is bringing together that consistently.
Absolutely, 100% agree.
Okay.
It's slightly outside the overlay. It's right on the edge.
Okay. Thank you for looking at that. At this point, I'd like to open it to members of the public, either in the room or online, if anybody additional has anything to say about this application. Anybody online? Not in the room? All right, I'll close the public comment. I'll bring it back to the board for any additional thoughts or a motion.
If there's no comment, I'll try a motion. Case number 22-004, Gardner Signs is the petitioner, requesting a variance from section 12.09 to permit the replacement of an existing sign to allow for face changes and keep the same existing height at 33 Bob Seeger Way. I move that we approve the request as posted. You know, citing that the Pine Knob venue in itself is a very unique parcel. I believe it's the only property we have zone rec in the whole township, the size of the parcel, and, you know, the amount that they bring to the community, being the reasons.
I second that.
We have a motion by Mr. Gailey, support by Mr. Charles. Brian, if we could have a roll call, please?
Mr. Auger,
No,
Mr. Epping,
Yes.
Mr. Galley,
Yes.
Mr. Grusnick,
Yes.
Mr. Charles.
Yes.
The motion passes, and good luck with the new sign.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Appreciate your time, thank you.
Brian, I'd just like to put in that I voted no because I didn't hear anything from the applicant on trying to bring it closer to the sign ordinance.
Thank you, Alan. With that, we'll move on to new business. New business, we have one case, case number 22-007, John McMillan, petitioner, requesting an 850 square foot variance from section 5.06A3, table 5.061, in order to construct a pole barn at 5330 Clintonville Road, which is in the R1A Single Family Residential section of the township. Mr. McMillan? Yes. How are you tonight? Good. If you could come up and just again, give us your name and your address, and then tell us more about your variance request, please.
John McMillan, 5330 Clintonville Road.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So great. So you've provided an application with some graphics and a bit of a description of what you're doing and what you'd like to do, and some of the reasons why. If you could walk us through that and just explain the uniqueness of it.
I bought that house next door to my daughter and grandkids, kind of spur of the moment. I moved my mom in with me. She's got Alzheimer's. She's got a lot of stuff. I got a lot of stuff. We got stuff everywhere. I've got cars. My mom's got cars. Try to just put everything inside. Get everything out of storage. So, just, I wanted to be bigger than what I put for, but, I don't want to be, mean or like trying to be too much, but,
Right.
I work on cars, I work on my own cars. I got classic cars. I got a car hauler and a camper and stuff, that I would like to be inside.
Makes
So,
sense.
I don't want all that stuff in my yard.
I understand. So you're in we've got a couple different residential zoning districts in the township. You're in the R1A single family, which in the ordinance has different size requirements as it relates to the size of the property and the size of your existing garage and so forth. We also have different setbacks and things like that in it. So this exceeds the minimum or the maximum size requirement by 850 feet. How large, I guess, in the applicant, I was gonna say, how large is the proposed barn? It's 30 foot by 60 foot?
Yeah, 1,800 square foot.
1,800 square feet?
Not really, I don't know, not really a barn, it's a garage. I mean,
Okay.
it's not gonna be a pole barn, it's gonna be a stick-built garage.
Okay, great. Concrete floor and so forth?
Yeah.
And currently proposed, it's 15 foot just off the back of the existing home?
Yeah,
15
I
foot
know it
up.
was supposed to be 10, and just kind of looking where the trees were and stuff was just, I was guessing 15 foot, so.
Well, it can be no closer than
Than
10,
10,
but
yeah,
it
right,
could
right,
go
yeah,
as far
yeah,
back
yeah.
as you want.
Yeah,
Okay, and 15 foot from the side property line.
yeah.
Brian, could you walk us through a little bit in terms of the math? It's always a little bit of an exercise to come up with a determination of what's permitted and why this is 850 square feet larger than what would typically be permitted?
Sure. This property is 43,000 square feet and some change, so it's just under an acre, very, and the way that works out is a maximum number not to exceed of 950.
Based
So-
on the property size?
Yeah, so, that being the case, it's 1,800, it's simple math of 1,800 minus 950, and that's the variance request. So, I did a calculation also on his existing garage, which would allot him, technically, according to the ordinance and the way that the math works is, he's allowed 731 square feet of accessory on the property. However, you can apply unused garage space towards that number to add to that to get to a maximum of 950. So he is, after calculating his existing garage and what he has left, he's maxed out at 950.
And it looks like there's also an existing additional shed out on the
Yeah, I'll
property as
get
well.
rid of the shed once I get that stuff full of stuff too
Yeah.
Okay.
for moving. But I'm actually moving it right to next door to my son-in-law and daughter's house, so they don't have a shed.
Okay. So some concerns that I have, and we'll open up to the board and everything, but just my initial thoughts as we start to go through this is, it's a big structure, right? 60 foot by 30 foot, and no doubt I'm sure it could be constructed, stick built to look nice and probably match the home, but it's still a large structure and kind of a large wall on the side there. I would guess that your daughter probably lives to the right of you or to the property where it's gonna be closest to the property line?
No, the other
She
side.
lives to the opposite side, okay. But again, it's less important to me. I just assume that it's obviously gonna be an impact to the neighbor regardless, and whether your daughter lives there now, we have to look, for the long term of properties as they change owners. One thing that we look to, zoning board is really required to look to on areas like this, or variances like this, are hardships, unique hardships, typically to the property, or, is there a wetland, are there trees? And a lot of the times that has to do with placement, not necessarily size. Certainly owning a lot of stuff and trying to get it
Right.
enclosed may technically, in some eyes be a hardship, but it's not necessarily a zoning hardship. And so at this point, it seems like an awful large structure for an R1A piece of property, even though you have a deep piece of property. At this point, it seems as though it would be an impact to the neighborhood, certainly an impact to the neighbor immediately to, that it favors to the.
But he said he was fine with it. Like I said, there ain't no other neighbors there. It's just 3 houses.
No, it is 3 houses, but there is a neighbor there, and that house could be sold tomorrow, and, the
Oh,
new
yeah.
people would have to deal with it. So at this point, I want to continue to have the conversation, hear from my board members, but I'm at this point yet not seeing a hardship that would justify almost doubling the size of what's permitted on this piece of property. All right. Is there anybody, Alan, maybe we'll start with at this end and work our way down?
The size of the existing structure is approximately how big? It looked like to me about 20 by 20 out there,
The 16 by
16 by
The shed.
16. Because I didn't go on the property, I just viewed it from a road in 75.
Yeah, and since he had stated that he was gonna remove it, that's why I didn't calculate that in.
Okay, so
Otherwise, that would have changed the math a little bit, but I think the variance would still apply
yeah.
regardless.
And driving into the condo subdivision that is on the south of you,
Yeah.
with that one lot, it's pretty much a bare lot as yours is, and the view of this big of a structure from all those houses, not necessarily just from your neighbor, but from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there's 7 houses that would have to view this structure. And I think it's a little large for that zoning district. And without any architectural details, knowing what the structure is going to look like, I'm opposed to it at this time.
Thank you, Alan.
But everybody in those condos could have been here tonight, right? To complain if they would have had an issue with it, right?
Well, that's a good point, although our job is to look objectively at the ordinance
Right.
and certainly be informed by the applicant and neighbors and the public,
Yeah.
but to try and apply evenly or interpret evenly the ordinance, for sure. Mr. Krusnick?
So, Brian, without looking at the numbers, what would be about the maximum that would be permitted today for that property if the shed were to be removed?
950.
950? Okay. Mr. McMillan, have you given any thought to two buildings, one on your property and one on your neighbor's to the north, to accomplish the same square footage?
No.
Why, that might accomplish what your needs are in the end, is to do a project like that?
But then I'd be building on their property,
Well,
so,
Your daughters?
yeah, but.
yeah, but it sounds like the storage is needed for all of you guys, so.
Well, no, they lived there before I did. I was in Florida last winter, and when I got back with my mom, she had a place in Florida, so we sold her place. And when we came back, the same day they were putting that house up for sale. It was going Monday. I got here Sunday, so I went and looked at it Sunday and bought it. You know, and the hurry of it, because it was just everything was going on so fast. But you know, I always thought that I'd be able to put a garage. Like I said, I moved 3 people into one house, and I was still paying storage bills. Like I said, I've got cars stored everywhere. My mom's got her own car, and the only reason I'm trying to go so big is I got old cars, old Cadillacs. They're 20 foot long, so you can't put it in a 20-foot building. You know,
Right.
it's got to be in a little room to get around the thing. So, you know, I don't know, if building on their property, and like I say, if they sell their house and I'm out, you know, that wouldn't.
Help. We're just, again,
Yeah.
we've always try and understand the circumstance and look for ways to ideally find something that'll work. It's not always one way or the other, but it's a,
Like I said, I wish I'd have looked into the whole zoning thing before I bought it. It was just, you know, kind of,
yeah.
oh, I got plenty of land, I'll be able to put a garage, I'll be all right. And then,
Okay. And my only other thought is, I would wonder why you would choose to build it 15 feet off the south property line instead of the north property line. Because the south, there's trees to contend with there, and I'm not even sure those trees all belong to this property or your neighbor's property.
yeah,
But certainly the
big,
construction of a
yeah, the
building
big
like
tree,
that.
the big trees on my property. I think there's 2 on my property and then a couple on his side of the line
Right.
too.
But
Mainly the only reason is if you've ever looked at the backside of his house, it's terrible. So I would rather, when I'm sitting on my back porch, I like the look, I like the view of, you know, all the way to 75. I don't want a garage there. I don't like the shed there. I've said that since the day. I'm like, I can't wait to get that shed out of here. I just want it open. And putting it off to the side just keeps it out of sight, you know. I mean, I just got a wide open yard.
You know,
Kids, like grandkids ride dirt bikes and quads in their yard and golf carts in my yard. And so,
but it may have, that's a negative impact on others' views.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good point that views are important.
right.
Anything else, Mitch? Thanks. Mr. Galley?
I guess I tend to agree with the other petitioner's comments. You know, you can get roughly 22 by 44, which is still a really big building. If you're talking 4 Cadillacs, you can park 4 Cadillacs in there. Your comment of room to get around them, I appreciate it. I'm assuming you have tools, boxes, other stuff to store, but if I'm correct, you can build a mezzanine in there, and that doesn't count against you, correct? It's just foundation square footage?
Yeah, it's foundation.
So if the footprint of the building is what's counted as the size of the building, you can have storage loft inside the building for the small items. So, and you know, while I appreciate your quest to build the biggest you can and store the most you can and put the most stuff you can in there, in my opinion, if we approve this, we have to approve every size variance that ever comes in front of us. And you know, I don't think I can do that without a good hardship.
Right.
That's it.
But it is a good point. So on a rough, quick calculation, roughly 22 by 44 is still a heck of a big building. And then you're suggesting that there may be other ways internally to
To
provide some
store stuff,
storage.
correct.
Makes sense. Mr. Charles?
I agree with Mr. Auger and the other members of the chair. I think a building this size is out of character, considering everything that's around. And I really think that the homes in Wildflowers would be severely impacted, looking out the back end of the 60-foot long building. I see that as the biggest impediment to this, and I'm not in favor of it.
Thank you.
I might say something else that kind of explain things to the petitioner. a study was done a few years ago. A lot of these board members, and I wasn't even on it, and I've been on it 18 or 19 years now. They looked into the storage problems, and they revised the whole thing because so many cases were coming before the board. And a lot of time was spent with the planning commission, I think it was before Brian even, on trying to increase the sizes and be more realistic for storage. And that's principally why a lot of times we take, you know, a hard look at it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. With this, we'll pause a minute and open it up to the public, either online. I don't think anybody's online. It doesn't look like anybody's in the audience. So we'll bring it back. Mr. McMillan, I think the board, and we'll ask for a motion in a minute, but I want to bring it back to you, give you some opportunity to either ask questions or make additional comments or things. But again, we look for a hardship and then really kind of a unique justification to go so far out of the ordinance. And we do have to look at surrounding properties and whether, you know, almost regardless of who's going to live there, because those properties are going to be here 25 and 30 and 50 years from now. And so I think you've heard some of our concerns. It's not that this property isn't entitled to a storage facility. It's a question of just how big that should be and what's appropriate for this particular zoning classification. There's certainly areas within the township, in the R1R, bigger pieces of property that are can accommodate a larger structure because they're in different zoning classifications. It's just this particular zoning classification, it becomes a variance request.
I really have nothing. I mean, like I said, I wish I'd have looked into it before I bought the house, but
But then you still won't be near your grandkids, and that's gotta have a
well,
value.
that's worth the gold right there.
There you go. There you go. With that, I'd open to a motion on the case under new business, please.
I'll make a motion in case 22-004.
007.
I'm sorry, to deny the request as advertised.
I'll
For
second
lack
that.
of, no hardship, that would meet our requirements, or dimensional, variance.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'd support.
Motion and support by Mr. Gruznik. Brian, if we could have a roll call, please.
Mr. Epping?
So a yes is an agreement to deny, correct? So yes.
Mr. Galley?
Yes.
Mr. Gruznik?
Yes.
Mr. Charles?
Yes.
And Mr. Auger?
Yes.
So, Mr. McMillan, I appreciate you coming to the board and working with the building department. Certainly, as we said, there's potentially other opportunities or alternatives that you've heard here. And Brian and his team can continue to help in any way.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you, guys.
Thank you for your time. That concludes new business. At this point, we have our minutes from March 2nd, 2022 were in our packet. If we can have a review of those and if motion to accept those into the record.
Hearing no comments on the minutes, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of March 2nd, 2022 as published.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. And that brings us to discussion. I at least have one discussion item. I understand this is Mitch's last meeting?
Yes, I've submitted my resignation request.
Resurrection would have been a lot
Yeah,
better.
it would have been. I agree. I've certainly enjoyed the membership on this board over the years. I've been serving since 2013, and I'm going to miss it, but scheduling conflicts, I will continue to miss too many meetings, and it's not fair to the residents of Independence.
Well, we appreciate, I certainly appreciate, and I'm sure the township appreciates it. You've been here for a long time and always been very thoughtful, and your experience and your professional career bringing it here to the Independence, I think has made a big difference to our township, so.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna miss you.
And I will miss, and I'll be watching you guys, so I'm not going anywhere.
We'll probably need an.
Continue the good work.
We'll probably need an alternate, so that, if you want to apply to be alternate, you can always pinch hit every now and then.
I would consider being an alternate because my availability will not be able to meet every meeting, but certainly,
Occasionally.
yeah.
I know the township appreciates it.
Well, thank you.
Any other discussion, guys?
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 6:35.
It's a record. All in favor?
I'll
Second.
support.
Motion to adjourn and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Give it an official gavel.